The Tisch collection is a real model for what collectors should look toward in terms of collecting within the 20th century, both in America and Europe.
Whether that's the poetry of Miro, or the sense of structure that's always there with Leger, or the sense of the modern urban environment that's inescapable in Giacometti, or how urgent was Picasso's need to create art. In each case, I think the Tisch chose very carefully, and you have a very representative example of the artist's worldview.
Artists of the post-war period would have been looking backward and would have seen Miro and Leger and Picasso.
You think about Miro during the Second World War, we think of the constellations and the filigree detail. But here you see him sort of broadening his message, his language, and this sort of quite gestural brushwork that possibly also speaks to what then American artists would take up in the late 40s and into the 50s. Fernand Léger's Les Trois Femmes au Bouquet was painted in 1922. It is a dazzling example of Léger's neoclassicism.
I always think of people like Roy Lichtenstein when I look at these paintings and the sort of breaking up of forms.
And then there's sort of this Mondrian framework he's got behind it. He was always trying to combine these two sort of contrasting impulses in his art, which was to have himself measured, of course, against the great masters of past time, but also to make it modern. Miro's Woman Listening to Music from 1945 is a highlight of the Tisch collection. Painted in May, just 3 days after VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, it represents a new and optimistic vein in Miro's art.
This figure here is so wonderful with that sort of all-seeing eye.
Yes. And I love the way he's, even so in the colours, how he's dabbed at it as well to give it that strange Max Ernst-like texture almost. It is like music at night as well. It's something magical about that.
I mean, these paintings from 62, 63 were really quite radical because while figuration was sort of happening in the Bay Area with artists like Diebenkorn, if you think about what was going on in New York at the time with pop art and abstract expressionism, no one was really looking at figuration in the same way.
It's got such a luscious surface.
Well, and the colors are, really extraordinary. You have this fabulous yellow on the couch and the blue over here, and even this like very fleshy redness of her limbs.
And the freedom, there's an echo of Fauve painting as well. I think you think of Matisse at that very beginning when he's really experimenting with color and form.
This Untitled de Kooning was painted just about 13 years after the Diebenkorn. His most celebrated body of work is really this moment in 1975, 76, where he's just in love with life and his surroundings, and you have this just very gestural, sensuous sort of moment. And you can see here all of the different layers and the surface and the scraping away.
For de Kooning, they're like Monet's Nymphias in a way, a late meditation on painting and colour effects, and very confident language as well, isn't it?
The conversation between figuration and abstraction is so interesting thinking about the Tisch collection across the board, because there are obviously moments of great figuration, but also fabulous abstract compositions by artists who are sort of dealing with both of those issues at the same time.